And we've got Patrick Burgermeister from KIZOO coming to speak with us now. And KIZOO are a great investor, I have to say. They have made some very interesting bets on some very early stage biotech and technology companies. And Patrick's going to talk to us about those and some other stuff today. So Patrick, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Phil. And also thanks to the organizers for having me here today. It's a lovely venue. And I asked the organizers what is actually expected of me in my talk. Was concrete, investable cases. So that's what my talk will focus on. The first part, I will briefly tell you who KIZOO is, what we do, and then afterwards, you will hear of 6 concrete companies. So have your camera at the ready to take pictures, however you like. Small caveat, Phil, it's not clinical yet, but pretty close to in some instances. So let's start. KIZOO is actually part of a larger group. We also have a foundation part called Forever Healthy. With that, we support research projects, for example, at the Buck Institute for Aging Research in California. And we also have an annual conference in Berlin that we call the Rejuvenation Startup Summit. I will tell you a bit more about that in a second. Let me maybe start with this one here. These are the people behind it. To the left, you see Michael Greve, a very successful IT entrepreneur. He was the founder of web.de. He was also the founder of lastminute.de. So he anticipated correctly that we don't always need a travel agency to book our flights and travels. This could also be done via the internet, and he anticipated that correctly already in the 90s. And he was right in several instances with his predictions. Frank and myself, we are the operational team. I'm a molecular biologist. I worked in an Alzheimer's lab, worked with Big Pharma at Novartis, but mostly I've been in venture capital, this already since 2006. I was a partner at a Swiss VC group called Biomed Partners. After the successful exit of web.de, Michael started KIZOO, which originally invested in IT companies. That's the field he was most familiar with. But we had a complete switch in 2016. We focus since then exclusively on the rejuvenation biotech field. And we have no limits in terms of geography or time-wise. We are technically a family office. We are evergreen in structure. We have a global scope also. And just realized that's the wrong, this one. Global scope, and we invest quite early into the companies, take large stakes, take also board seats in the key investment companies, and are a partner for a very long time. Last year, we announced, because KIZOO was not that known yet, we announced that we'd like to invest another 300 million into this field. And we have a key investment strategy, meaning we invest in a select few companies, but keep very large reserves for each one of them, just to make sure they have enough push to reach the market in the end. Our ticket sizes are a couple of million initially, whatever is needed to get going. And as mentioned, we are often the earliest investors together with angel investors, family offices, foundations. That's the usual pattern that we have. This is the conference that I briefly mentioned. It just happened in Berlin last month. I see many familiar faces here in the audience. If you haven't been there, I strongly recommend that you are there next time in Berlin. It's the largest gathering, as far as we know, of startup companies in the longevity biotech field, of C-level management, investors, scientists also, Professor Kennedy and Verdin gave keynote speeches, and also the media that is present. My talk is called Investing in Category Openers. Why is that? We'd like to start completely new waves. As an example, we did one or the other investment in the senolytic field. We are now convinced that this field is quite ripe, accepted in a way even, and I think we would not invest in a new one nowadays because we're convinced this field will succeed one way or the other, depending on the approach, depending on the indication that is chosen. So we are already looking for the next wave, for the next category. I think it was Aaron this morning who mentioned 0 to 1, the book from Peter Thiel. You could also look at it like this, that we like to get things from 0 to 1. So we're not a follower, we're more a leader in that sense. Now, to the concrete investment examples. Fiona and Tom presented briefly Citrix, Matrix this morning. We have another player in the mitochondria space called Selvi. As one of the founders, we have James McCulley, who is maybe the most known expert in this field. And thanks to the earlier speakers, I don't need to explain much about mitochondria anymore. The power cells, the batteries of the cells, if you will, they are readily absorbed by cells, are non-immunogenic, which makes them very attractive for many different indications. So it's a whole platform that Cellvie can develop here. You can imagine injecting these into donated organs, and only if they last for a couple of days longer, that would already be a game changer in the field of transplantation. The first aging indication that we chose is sarcopenia. All of us lose muscle mass while getting older, and if you can once in a while get an injection of fresh mitochondria, can even be from someone else, and some publications have even shown that you can transfer mitochondria between species. That's quite freaky, but maybe owed due to the nature. Mitochondria have evolutionary originated as being absorbed by larger cells. That's the reason for them being non-immunogenic. We treated already 14 children at the Boston's Children's Hospital, where this company originated. They were at the ECMO, so the blood-lung machine, as it's also called. Mostly these people are prone to death. Half of them were saved, could be disconnected from the machine. So we already have some clinical experience, but are still developing this modality further. We have a very broad and strong IP portfolio that we created. And the team itself is based in Switzerland, in Zurich, at the Technopark, led by Alexander Schüler, an entrepreneur who had an exit, a company before. Number 2 is really a category opener. Have you ever asked yourself, what do people die of if they don't have a disease? They're lucky, no cancer, no dementia until 100, maybe even beyond that. Some people then just say, died of old age. What is that exactly? A lot of experts agree that it's due to 2 unavoidable things. We all breathe oxygen, we all eat, and the food is afterwards digested into glucose and other carbohydrates. Unfortunately, some of these molecules, they connect with the very proteins of your body that make up your structure, the vessels, the extracellular matrix, and they become stiff. Hypertension is it leads to hypertension and to a lot of other diseases. We do not have enzymes that break these crosslinks. That's the mission of Revel. They are a platform looking for completely new enzymes that are able to break these crosslinks. They are called also AGEs, the first bullet point. As far as I know, it's the only company out there who is targeting this. And we were one of the first investors. They're based in the Silicon Valley, close to San Francisco, and led by Aaron Cravens, a graduate of Stanford University, and his team. Also in the San Francisco area is Cyclarity. You may know them as Underdog Pharmaceuticals. They recently had a name change. They develop a special form of cyclodextrins. These are molecules that can harbor cholesterol that accumulates in your body. And we have very nice data where we can reverse the appearance and the how foam cells were, foam cells, they take up the cholesterol and are then becoming dysfunctional, and we were able to show a reversal of that. They are actually pretty close to the clinic here in England. They have received a special treatment from the MHRA, the British regulatory agency, so-called Innovation Passport Program. So the phase 1 will start next year, crossing fingers, here in England. They are led by the former CEO and CSO of the Sense Research Foundation that we supported for a long time, Mike Cope and Matthew O'Connor. If this works out, it could eliminate a root cause of atherosclerosis and heart attacks. This company here is based right in your backyard, White City, London, and you've heard Alex speak earlier this morning, so there's not much I need to tell you about it. You may even remember the picture on the right-hand side. These are the neutrophils that this company is developing. Maybe just one additional remarks that Alex did not point out. The research where this originated was actually at Wake Forest University in the US. They, more or less by chance, they discovered a mouse strain that was immune to cancer. They gave it up to 1 million-fold a lethal dose, and the mice just were fine. That's actually how this developed. You can look it up. It's well documented now with publications. They call it SRCR mouse, which stands for Spontaneous Regression Complete Remission mouse. And this is now the translation to humans with part of the innate immune system, not dependent on antigens, meaning hopefully this is a treatment that is applicable to most solid tumors. Also entering the clinic in about 18 months from now, obviously also in the UK. Next on the list is Elastrin, and this is maybe the example I used most when people talk to me about rejuvenation biotech. They say, well, rejuvenation, come on. That's science fiction, right? You cannot make people younger, that's. And then I explained the case of Elastrin to them. In the end, molecularly, rejuvenation always means just a change to a younger state, if you will, but it's not that much magic if you look at it on a small scale. Our vessels get calcified over the long term. Over the decades, with diabetics and smokers, maybe a bit faster, but for everybody, that's the same fate. What Elastrin is doing, it takes out this calcium in a very targeted manner. So only where the elastin fibers, that's part of the inner part of your vessels, where this is damaged, the calcium is taken out. This is made sure by antibody that is bound to nanoparticles. So it's quite a complex treatment, but we have no obstacles identified yet and should be in the clinic next summer already. We will choose an orphan indication first for this. That's quite a common pattern, as you may have heard this morning already with other companies. Orphan indication first, then a larger indication, leading all the way to a real anti-aging treatment in the end. Last but not least, we have our newest investment, Mogling Bio. Very fascinating. You all heard about stem cells. And if you ask yourself, what is a stem cell actually? A stem cell is a cell that divides asymmetrically, right? One of these cells remains a stem cell, please. Otherwise, you would run out of them quickly, and so with it, the whole species. The other cell becoming a specialized cell. How does that look? Again, on a molecular level, rejuvenation is not that magic. It's just some proteins that sort in a special form in the stem cell before it divides. And then when it does, the two cells, of course, are different. This is not so clear anymore with aging. So if you age, this division between stem cell and specialized cells becomes a little bit fuzzy, a little bit noisy. And two of the founders that are mentioned here, Hartmut Geiger and Yi Chen from Cincinnati and Ulm University in Germany, respectively, they have researched this for, gosh, I think more than 15 years. And now they have founded a company because they want to see this developed further. We have a special approach with which we rejuvenate hematopoietic stem cells, big name, but that's just a cell that populates in the end the whole blood system, but also the whole immune system. If this works, then also responses to vaccines would be much better in the end, and there are many more indications that you could look at with this. We also found a very experienced CEO for this company with a long big pharma background with Boehringer Ingelheim, Jürgen Rees. So with these 6 examples, I hope you can see a bit the strategy of KIZOO. Most of them will go out fundraising in 2023, maybe not Mogling, that's too new. They just came out of stealth mode recently. But there are really opportunities for you to take part in the next round.
Perfect. Great. Well, everyone, if you help me thank Patrick for joining us, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see you.